Thursday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Day 4 with the man, Mr. Frank Scalish. Frank, how you doing?
Is everybody staying warm?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. Here, check this out. I'm going to throw it up right at the beginning of the show, but check this out. All right. Any idea what lake that is?
Table Rock.
Close.
Oh, it's Bull Shoals.
No. Close.
All right. Could I just start naming lakes in your region?
Keep going.
All right. 10 Killer.
No, it's not.
Colder.
It's not in Oklahoma.
All right.
You were closer with the other two.
I don't know.
Lake of
the Ozarks.
Ah, man, that was my next guess.
Yeah, that looks miserable. All right, before we get into the show, Frank, Matt and I need your advice because we are about to go through something that has never taken place in the history of the state of Oklahoma. They are predicting in a span of 2 days, 18 inches of snow.
Perfect.
18 inches.
Perfect.
All right. Our one snowplow that we have in the state is not going to be able to handle that.
No, you guys, you might as well just, you know what, put your feet up on the couch, make some sandwiches, put on a good sporting event, crack open a beer, and wait till it melts.
Well, see, that's just it. Once again, the other record that we're going to break over a span of 7 days is the lowest that the temperatures have been over a 7-day spread, of which the low one day is going to be 6 below.
Wow, that's good for you guys. I you know what? You're talking to I have no sympathy for you.
I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking for advice.
Just
what the heck do you do?
You stay in because nobody can drive in that stuff down there. Same thing in the Carolinas. Every time I would go to Charlotte in January or February and they'd have any kind of snowfall, the whole city shuts down. Yeah. And they have like an inch. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean?
16 inches of snow. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's good. Hey, I'll give you some advice. Don't shovel it.
Good
Especially
point.
You.
I don't have a snow shovel. I need a snow blower. Dude, if you had a Bobcat and a snowblower here in Oklahoma, you could make a ton of money.
Yeah, in 2 days, and then it'll be gone.
Yeah. Well, it's going to hang around a while because of the low temps.
You know, we've had the last probably 3 years, maybe 4, the most mild winters we've ever had. I fished out of the boat all the way through February. This year, we got knocked out about the second, third week in January. We couldn't get a boat in the water anymore.
Wow. Now, I know a lot of people give me crap about talking about the weather, but this weather that we're going to have here really in the lower Midwest, is it not going to have a dramatic effect on the fish and how much it's going to delay the spawn? You know, we had Brad on yesterday, and Brad talked a little bit about it. It was like, yeah, it's going to set it back a couple of weeks. Dude, these fish are not used to this weather. The lake is going to be frozen.
Yeah, no, your fish aren't used to it, but here's what happens. When that ice finally starts to come off the lake, those fish are going to move in mass. You're going to have probably one of the most fast and furious spring fishing events that you've encountered in a long time. That happens up here too. When we freeze long, like into March and the beginning of April, as soon as that ice comes off, there's so many bass shallow, it's ridiculous. Your fish will do the same thing. You'll have a really strong, hard movement right off the rip when they start coming up. You'd be surprised. These fish are more affected by the length of the days than they are about the water temperature at this time of year. As the days start to get longer, the fish are already starting to move. Last year, for example, I fished until I couldn't launch a boat anymore, and I was cracking 300, 400 yards of ice to get out, and the deepest bass I caught was 5 feet deep. They were already shallow. Yeah, they were already shallow. And it wasn't even winter yet. I mean, it was winter, but the lakes didn't freeze yet, and then conversely, because it was such a mild winter and it was so prolonged, our spring was terrible. The fish moved in little spurts, no hard movement. Normally when we're solid ice and then boom, the ice goes away, all the fish are up already. This time they were milling back and forth. We had a lot of different waves, and fishing was really spread out this spring. So you'll find out that when this ice starts to leave that lake, those fish are already going to be where they're going to be.
It's a real shame, Frank, that, seasonal movements and where fish are doesn't matter anymore with as much electronics as we have on our boats. Doesn't matter where they are. I just put it in and just find them and catch them. So, I mean, that'd been a great topic 3 or 4 years ago, but you don't need to bother ourselves with seasonal migrations and patterns of fish. We have electronics that find them for us. Who cares where they are? You just put your boat in and go find them.
Well, that's the beauty about our technology today, except everybody forgets one thing. You still have to find them. Your graph only shows you what you're in front of. If you're not in front of any fish, you're not going to see them on your graph.
You take your seasonal pattern crap, you give me 30 inches of screen, and within 2 years, you could be chasing your seasonal patterns.
He's a little bitter this morning, Frank.
Yeah, I think he's baiting me, man. He wants me to join the army.
Wow. Man.
Yeah, the electronic thing today is amazing. I mean, when I was younger, all we fished off of were flashers, and I carried a compass and a protractor with me. And most guys today couldn't read a compass if their life depended on it.
Yeah, there was probably a 70-year-old dude who was like, "Look at that young whippersnapper with that cheating flasher over there.
Right,
knows what's on the bottom.
Yeah,
knows how deep. Look at that structure. I had to use a lead windowsill and drag it behind with a rope to find that hump back in the 50s."
Yeah, well, no, they tied knots on a rope and dropped the rope down.
But didn't they use a lead windowsill, like a thing that dropped the window curtain? So this is what Rooster from Gunnersville told me how they found shell beds before there was electronics. They would take a strip of lead that would be like at the bottom for a window shade. They would tie it to the rope. They would drag it behind the boat, and they would hold the rope, and they could tell based on the vibration coming through the rope on the lead on the bottom when they come across a shell bed or a hard spot or a rock pile.
Those shell collectors, those guys were crazy. I met a guy, and he was a shell diver. Why are you laughing, man?
Because Sean said anything you hear from a guy named Rooster is questionable. But continue.
I was going to say something, but I can't.
Here you go, Frank. There it is right there.
Dude, he was legit. You remember from the Gunnersville documentary, he'd be like, "Oh, man, I got who beat him? He came in with 48, and some guy beat him by 2 ounces, and he still held a grudge 50 years later."
Yeah.
The Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah.
The Roosters and the Chickens.
Anyway, sorry, back to you.
No, that's okay. So I met this old guy, and he was he was a muscle guy on Gunnersville. And the knowledge that those old muscle guys have about the bottom of the lake is astronomical. I sit with this guy for hours and talk to him. And there was a dude on Kentucky Lake, same thing. He was a muscle guy. And they go out and they drag those fence things with the little claws on them over the mussel beds and bring up all the mussels. The knowledge that those guys have is uncanny because they spend their whole lives on the bottom of these lakes. It was a really amazing thing. And he put me on a bunch of shell beds one time, and they were right where he said they would be. I mean, it was unbelievable.
All right, Frank, before we get into the subject today, obviously, if you've went over to bassmaster.com, they are under a fog delay. Who knows when they'll get started over there. And then over on the other side, the TWPC, Mr. Frederick has 20 pounds already, Matthew.
He's good.
Yeah,
right.
And I was looking at the sheet, and then there was only one person, I believe, that picked Frederick and took the under. So everybody else took the over.
So
Frederick.
so they're on Okeechobee.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got 20 already. So don't forget tomorrow, the watch party with myself and Frank. I've received a number of emails. Still got some slots. If you want to jump in there tomorrow, shoot me an email, mark@basson.com. All you need is a high-speed internet connection, a camera, and a mic and some headphones, and that's it. You can come and join the party and ask Frank any kind of questions that you want about the action. Hopefully the action that's taking place on the SJR. Fog is definitely an issue this time of the year.
It's
you ever
not
been scared?
action.
Yeah, really. You ever been scared running in the fog, Frank?
No, I have never been scared running in the fog because, I'm smarter than that. And I don't run 70 miles an hour when I can't see 5 feet in front of the boat. But I did get turned around on Lake Erie one time in the fog.
Really?
This was before GPSs. And I was going out and I was with my father and he's like, holy smokes, look at all the fog. And I said, yeah, don't worry about it. I know where I'm going. And I went way out, and we weren't smallmouth fishing. We were actually walleye fishing, and everything went slick flat, still, no wind, no nothing. Fog dropped in on us. And I was in 55, 60 feet of water. And when you get out to that part of Lake Erie, it's really flat. And I'm like, you know what? I have no earthly idea where we're at. I said, for all I know, we could be in Canada right now. So he goes, what are we going to do? I said, I'll just start making big, giant circles. And if I can get a little bump in the contour, then at least I know what direction we got to go to stay in the United States. So we wound up doing that for about 3 hours, and then finally the wind picked up and the fog left. But it was weird not knowing, you couldn't see a foot in front of you, and you didn't know, and not knowing where you were. It was kind of weird. I mean, it was an ugly feeling.
Wow. All right, man. Topic today is what, Frank?
I think we'll do rattle baits today because, I'm getting a lot for that, a lot of questions about that. And the time is coming up. Well, maybe not now with all the weather that's going down there, but it should have been coming up. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk a little bit about some rattle baits, the differences, and how I like to fish them. And, I'm easy. Listen, I'm real easy on the rattle baits. I'll show you something right here. Let me close this thing. This is my rattle baits. That's all I carry in rattle baits. It's just a tiny, small little, box. It's half the size of a regular one because I don't make rattle bait fishing complicated. I don't want it to be complicated because I only throw them certain times of the year under certain conditions. So I don't need a lot of them.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it. If you have a question for Frank, throw it up on the YouTube comments or over on the instant feedback on basson.com. All right. Number one thing, most important thing about rattle baits, Frank.
Understanding what bait has what type of vibration action to it. That's probably the most important thing about the bait itself. The most important thing about fishing them is knowing exactly where and when to fish them. Those would probably be the keys. And color preference could be dictated by watercolor or region. And when I say region, here's what I'm talking about. In Florida, for example, in the springtime in Florida, I really only throw 2 colors for the most part, maybe 3. I throw black gold and I throw blue chrome. I throw blueback chrome or blackback gold chrome for the most part, because the bait fish that's prevalent down there is golden shiners. So I want something to look like a golden shiner. So I'll throw the blackback gold. But I do a little trick to my blackback gold, especially for Florida, is sometimes I'll put a little white belly on it. Like that, because the golden shiners, in the springtime, when the golden shiners start to spawn, they start to change color like all fish do when they spawn. They get more vibrant. So the golds stick out and everything. And they make a color now. The hard knocker, Booyah hard knocker, makes a color. It's a sweet color, and it really mimics the spawning colors of a golden shiner, and it's called copper shiner. Let me see. I know I got one right here. Here it is. It's called copper shiner, and I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, you can. You see how it's got that gold chrome to silver chrome with the coppery color back, copper color shoulders on it. This is a really good golden shiner imitator. It's a really good one. And so basically in Florida, and then the blueback, the blueback chrome, because of the needlefish in Florida. If you ever look at those needlefish, they're bluish green back and they're shiny. They got like a shiny side on them, but they're semi-transparent too. So I stick with those colors. But here, for example, like if I was on Gunnersville, I would be blowing up reds. I mean, I would be throwing, Rayburn red and stuff like that, because that's a geographical change, and they prefer the reds. Texas, they prefer the reds that time of year. So you have to understand geography where you're at. Reds work up here too, but up here, I'll start out with more minnow imitators up here as well, even though the reds do catch them up here. But if I'm like in the Carolinas or Alabama or something in, March and April, I'm throwing red to start. I'll let the fish tell me they don't want the red.
Is this probably the simplest bait to throw in the springtime, in the early spring?
Theoretically, theoretically it's simple, but it's really not as simple as people think it is. It's not just chucking it out and ripping it back to the boat. There's a lot of different techniques to fish it. For example, there's a lift and drop technique. It's almost like a yo-yo. And if you watch the last year's classic, I think Stetson Blaylock was doing it perfectly, dude. He would just lift it up out of that grass and let it fall back down. And so that's one technique. The other technique is actually snatching it through the grass, where you cast it up in the shallow grass and you burn it back and you're just ripping it through the grass. Those are the standard normal techniques that most guys know about. The thing I do with them that I love the most is I slow roll them on gravel points in the spring. I was on Watts Bar one year fishing a team trail with a buddy of mine, and the air temperature was 22 degrees. Water temperature was just touching 41, 42, and we were dragging rattle baits on gravel points and just smashing them. And I mean, catching gigantic fish, which you wouldn't believe it. I mean, our guides were freezing up, reeling it in, and it was crazy, I mean, we're jumping around a little bit based on the questions, but but it's okay, because this isn't a technique. Like I got one friend of mine, he'll throw a rattle bait all year. He lives in the Carolinas. Some of his lakes lend itself to it. He'll fish them around boat docks and everything. He doesn't care where he throws it. And he catches a lot of fish on it. I'm a little more particular. When I pick it up, it's going to work. And I'm not going to be hunting and pecking. I'm on fish. I like the lakes that don't have any grass. The first place I go in the spring is the back of flat pockets. That's a big trick. The back of flat pockets, and you can fish around on those mud flats, and you can be surprised what you catch there. And there's not a blade of grass in the place. So, that's it. Now the big, the big thing I get is line, what kind of line you throw. And I waffle between fluorocarbon and braid, to be honest with you. I love throwing them on braided line in the grass because I get more casts, because the braid snatches through the grass better. Mm-hmm. It's hard. You don't have any, you don't have that soft mush where the bait gets bogged up in the grass. You snap it through and it blows right through the grass. So I think in the grass, I get more efficient casts with the braid. But I keep waffling back and forth because I don't, it's something that I'm not 100% sure about yet as far as my techniques go. So I always have one on fluoro and one on braid.
All right, let's go to some questions. Jeffrey has a question. You see it on the screen there.
Oh,
Frank,
that's good.
How big of a deal is the one knocker compared to the regular style BB style?
Well, here's the cool thing about the one knocker. And what I like about it the most is it's just a one little clunk sound. Dunk, 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 dunk. So it's lower in frequency. The bass can remember high frequencies. So if everybody's running around the lake pitching rattle baits, that's when I'm going to the one knocker, because the bass aren't honed in on that high pitch, lot of BB sound. And that's when the one knocker really comes into play for me, because you can catch a lot of bass behind guys throwing regular rattle baits. This is a very, very key piece of information here. The other thing with the one knocker that I like is that, you know, that low frequency, I think, resonates better in a fish's lateral line, so they can bean in on the bait better. If they don't see it, they already know where it is, so they're almost ready for it when it comes. It's like this: if you guys ever deer hunted and you saw people put on a post and drive and everybody's in the woods hooping and howling going down a ravine, the deer hear that noise a mile away, but they don't know where the heck it's coming from. Okay. But if you have one guy walk through the middle of a ravine somewhere and he cracks a twig, that deer knows exactly where that guy is. That's what I think the one knocker does.
All right. Hey, Matt, if you want to throw anything in here, just let me know. Yeah, otherwise, I'm going to keep rolling through the questions.
Well, he talked about that and the one knocker. So go into this however you want to. But I know there's a history with the XR50, the XR75, and then it goes to the Booyah. There's like some out of production stuff, some stuff that's back in production. It's been made by a couple companies. I know some of the stuff is really sought after. Just kind of give a rundown, and then you've got the Cordell Spot in there too that I know has its place. So rundown on kind of the history and what baits you're throwing.
Okay, the XR50 was made by Excalibur, which is now basically the hard knocker, is the XR50. I think the original XR50 weighed a smidge more than a half an ounce. And when I say a smidge, we're talking probably a 16th maybe, if you put them on a balance beam. That's probably the only difference. The hard knocker I like better because it's a true half-ounce bait. And you brought up the Cordell Super Spot. This is something I want to talk about right now. So I'm going to show you the comparison. Okay, whoa, that's the Super Spot. Look at how that bait design is. Okay, see, hold on, get it. There it is. You see that how the flat head is there, and it goes in. It's got like a little bubble on the belly, and then you look at the hard knocker. Okay. Now, here's the difference between the two. This is why when I'm throwing rattle baits, I always have these two tied on. Here's the reason. The hard knocker has a tighter, harder vibration. It's super tight. You know, it's just what you expect out of a rattle bait. The Super Spot has a little wider wobble to it, and it pulls a little bit harder. They're both a half ounce, but here's the cool thing. I can take the Super Spot and reel it in slower, okay, and keep it higher in the water column. With the regular traditional rattle baits, you got to reel them in pretty quick to keep them from the bottom. So this one I can slow roll and keep it off the bottom if I so choose to. And it's, even though they're both a half ounce, they behave differently in the water. That's why I always have them both on. So if your grass grows up, but it's not up on the top, and you take a regular half ounce rattle bait and you throw it in there and it bogs down in the grass. So maybe you got to burn it in like 1,000,000 miles an hour to keep it above the grass. The Super Spot, you don't have to. The Super Spot, you can reel it in slower and it stays on top of the grass because it's displacing more water. They're both a half ounce. They're both the same size, but now I have the ability to slow it way down. And this is really important after cold front conditions too, because now I can keep it in the fish zone longer and I can do it slower, even though they're both a half ounce. So that's the real key to the two baits. So especially like on Kentucky Lake, I was slow rolling them on gravel bars, and back then it was the XR50, and I had to go to the super spot because I needed to make it go real slow on the gravel without just dragging it on the bottom, and I needed to keep bottom contact. So I went to the super spot and we mauled them. I mean, we absolutely mauled them. So if I didn't have both different baits, I would have missed out on a really prevalent bite.
There you go.
All right. Cool stuff. Real quick on the spot, somebody over on the Bass Zone was asking about the red spot that used to appear on those baits. Why did they get rid of it? Any idea why they don't have the red spot on there anymore?
Probably just a selling issue. It probably slowed down on sales. I mean, a lot of colors that go away, two things happen. It could be an extremely regional color, like it's a one lake deal.
Yeah.
And then therefore they're not selling enough of them to mass produce at that rate. So the color will go to the wayside, or colors fade in and fade out. It's like, clothing. One year you're wearing the hottest thing on earth, and then it goes out of style, and then 10 years later it comes back. And the same thing happens with lure colors.
Did you ever wear Angel Flight pants? Please tell me you did.
Dude, I had parachute pants.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh, but then I also had long hair and an earring. So
okay.
Wow. A lot has changed. A lot has changed since then.
Are there pictures of this?
Dude, I wouldn't show you the pictures if I had them. There's no way on earth. I'm getting a text now. I can only imagine who it's from.
Frank Jr., can we get a picture of this?
Yeah.
My son
long hair, earrings, and parachute pants.
Yeah, dude, it was almost like a mullet, but it wasn't quite a mullet.
Hey, I found a box when I was like 17, and my mom had like the upside down peace symbols and the raffia dresses and stuff. And she was like a full blown hippie.
Oh yeah, dude, you'd be surprised.
Back in the day.
I keep a lot of my stuff hidden though, hidden from the public.
Gotta get my hands on some of that. All right, Rick wants to know: do you change the hooks out? If so, what?
Yeah, I like round bends on these things. So if I swap them out, I'll swap them out to gummies. I use number 4s. On these particular baits, I'll go to the black nickel 2X on them because they get abused. If I use the regular single strong, I have a tendency to knock the hook, dragging them on the bottom.
All right, next question. Guy wants to know, am I missing out not throwing these style of baits in the Ozark region? I just never feel I'm in this situation to use it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're missing out on a time frame. You just got to understand the bodies of water that you're on and how to fish these things. I know on Bull Shoals, it's a pretty good bait in the spring, pre-spawn and during the spawn. It's a pretty good bait. So, you may want to just pay more attention to that time of year on them. The other time that I throw them too, which people overlook, is when the fish are schooling, because you can throw them a country mile and you can burn them in, and it just creates strikes. I mean, you're getting aggressive, hard strikes. You just got to be careful, because when you get into the hybrids and the stripers, you're going to catch them too.
Yeah. It's fun, but could be costly. All right. What about Fire Tiger?
I used to throw Tiger a lot up north, and in off-color water conditions. Fire Tiger is actually a good color. I still have them and I still throw them, but not as often as I used to, and maybe that's my mistake. Because we're also creatures of habit too, and you see new, latest, greatest things coming out, and you like gravitate towards it because, ooh, look how cool that looks. And then the good old Fire Tiger always knocks the crap out of them in the off-color water, and it's like, why am I throwing this when I could be throwing Fire Tiger? So I would never shy away from fire tiger.
All right. What about for catching them, trying to catch smallmouth?
Oh, yeah, dude. Smallmouth hate these things. I'll show you something right now if I could find it in this mess I got here. Hold on a second.
All right.
I have the smallmouth color. Oh, I found them. This is called Royalty. It's a purple back. It's kind of like a pearl white side, and a little chartreuse on the belly and a little orange on the chin. Now, here's the deal with this bait. When I was fishing that spinnerbait on Lake Erie, fishing that shallow spinnerbait in 2010, when I was practicing, I had that Royalty on, and I would go and ripping down. I was covering tons of water because I was just trying to find schools of fish. And dude, the smallmouths I caught on that thing were insane. Well, if anyone followed that tournament, I know it was a long time ago. It was like 2010, I think. They canceled the second day because we had gale warnings, and it threw up big waves, and so they had to cancel the second day. Well, the third day when I went back to my shallow fish, it had muddied up, and there were still giant swells there, so I couldn't even get close enough to make the cast that I needed to make because the boat was slamming on the bottom. So basically what happens is when the waves blow in, the smallmouth move out on Lake Erie because it's too big. They can't handle, you can't handle a 5-foot wave in 2 feet of water. So they leave. So I got on the mud line and I started throwing Royalty out there, and I caught a few. But the size wasn't there. I was catching 2-pounders. The size wasn't there. So I wound up leaving and going to my deep fish and caught them deep. But in practice, that bait was money for me because I covered so much water so fast. I found tons of pods of smallmouth that way. Smallmouth will absolutely tear the rod out of your hand when they hit a rattle bait, dude. They hit that thing so hard. It's like almost, it's exciting. It's like peacock bass fishing. I mean, they crush the thing. And most of the time they're choking on it because they don't play when they hit a rattle bait.
All right. Next one. Why are more of the baits not clear like jerk baits?
Well, rattle baits have a tendency to be it's a lot more reactional. Okay. Ripping through the grass, boom, yo-yoing it up and down, doing all the stuff. It's all reaction. And so, color's important, but the subtleties of clarity isn't as important when the bait's moving by them at Mach 10. But there is a clear bait that they make. That's one of my favorite in the rattle baits. And it's ghost shad. And you can see it's transparent. You see the BBs and stuff in there. Yeah. You can see it's transparent. If I'm throwing one that's semi-transparent, this is the one I'm throwing. The pearl on the side actually reflects a little more solid in the water. And that's about the only transparent rattle bait I own, to be honest with you. It's just not, you're moving them too fast, and it's not, the clear baits on jerk baits and everything, real subtle. I mean, it's just that,
Matt,
thoughts on water clarity, because we have a wide variety here. From you can go to Table Rock and have 20 feet of visibility, and then Grand sometimes will have a foot of visibility. Can you catch fish blown out water, stained water, super clear? What are your thoughts on water clarity as the effectiveness of a rattle bait?
Well, if the environment is always clean, okay, the clarity, all that means is the fish can chase it from farther away. They're mostly sight feeding. If the water's predominantly off color most of the year in these lakes, the fish are using sight when they're in their vision and vibration and noise when they're not. So they're used to feeding in this off-colored water. I found the craziest thing that I see is that like blue chrome works in gin clear water and it works in muddy water. Same thing with my shad patterns with, white pearl sides on it and a dark back. Works in clear water, works in dirty water. It's unbelievable to me. Fire tiger, everybody, it's fluorescent color. Ooh, look how bright that is. I catch more fish on fire tiger in clear water than just about anything. on a rattle bait. What people have to understand is how bass see color. They don't see that chartreuse and that lime green is chartreuse and lime green. It's just bright white to them. So when you have a gradiated back into chartreuse, like here, like chartreuse and black, okay, that bait has so much contrast to the fish, all right, that it's more visible in off-color water. It's not because of the bright chartreuse, because that to them is just a super bright white, but they can see it better because it's a bright white. So that's really the take on colors. But I've caught fish on rattle baits in mud, and I've caught them in gin clear water. It just, if the fish are on them, dude, they're on them.
Now, are you going opaques when it's cloudy and chromes when it's sunny? Because I've always just assumed that, like, if I'm throwing one, I'll go with like a sexy shad opaque if it's overcast, and then a chrome if it's sunny. Is that a thing for you?
It's not a thing for me, but I hear a lot of guys do that. If I'm catching them on blue chrome, I'm throwing them whether it's sunny or not. Okay. The fish will tell you what they want. You can tell you could tell by how they're hitting the bait if you're on the right color. If they're smashing the bait and they got both treble hooks in their mouth and you're not losing a lot of them, you're throwing the right color. If you catch one and one hook's on the outside of the mouth, one hook's on the inside of the mouth, a color change might get you a better take. So I let the fish dictate that. If they're slapping at it, I'm not throwing the right color. If they're choking on it, I got the right color.
All right, real quick, what about the rattle baits that suspend? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a super cool concept, because if you are banging into cover and you knock it off the cover, you could stop it if you wanted to, and then start it up again and not have it fall. So it's a really neat concept. I have fished them in the past. It's not my go-to in a rattle bait, but it does work.
All right. And then a number of people want to know the best setup based upon how you're fishing the rattle bait.
I throw it on a 7.5 foot medium, extra fast tip graphite rod. I don't throw crankbait. A lot of guys throw them on crankbait rods. I don't. I like the graphite because when I snap it through the grass, I can blow the bait through the grass better. The thing I hate the most if I'm fishing a bait is that if it gets bogged down in the grass, because now I just wasted a cast. So that makes me crazy. So I try to hone everything down to what I'm fishing and how effective I am fishing it. I use 30 or 50 pound braid on one rod, and I use 17-pound fluoro on the other. And I will alternate because sometimes I get better casting with the braid, more effective casting, not casting farther, just more effective the way I'm fishing it. If I'm snapping it through the grass a lot, the braid helps a ton, especially in eelgrass. Eelgrass is a pain in the ass. I mean, that stuff gets on everything and it's hard to get it off. But with the braid, a quick snap of the rod tip and I can blow it through that eelgrass. So, I try to use my line to help me fish it more efficiently.
All right, there you have it. Let's see here. Scott also wants to know, what about the smaller rattle baits, like 1/4 ounce?
I used to play around a ton with the 1/4 ounce stuff. I've had days where the 1/4 ounce mattered, but I'm a little OCD, guys. I'm a little different than that. I stick with all 1/2 ounces. I have one box with 3/4 and 1 ouncers. And to be honest with you, I have one box with 1/4 ouncers. I can tell you the box that gets used is the 1/2 ouncers. I'm a diehard on that bait. I like the size of it. I like the weight of it. And I like the way I can fish it. Now in Texas, I did throw the 3/4 ouncers a lot in Texas, but I was fishing it way deeper and I was yo-yoing the thing. And basically almost structure fishing with it. But for the most part, 90% of the time, if I have a bait tied on, it's going to be a 1/2 ounce hard knocker and a 1/2 ounce super spot is what I got.
Interesting. Did you mention gear ratio? on your reel?
I didn't. Now here's where I go against the grain. Everybody throws high speed reels on it. I don't. I don't because I can speed up a slow retrieve, but I can't slow down a fast retrieve reel. So I would rather, if I have to fish it super fast, I would rather wear myself out trying to keep it fast than get excited and not be able to slow it down if I needed to slow it down. Now I'll use a crank and reel on sometimes, and sometimes I'll just use a 6/4-1. So I'm talking about 23 to 26 inches of line per retrieve.
Are you a guy? And this is, I mean, if you watch any of the shows,
I'm a guy.
Yeah, good one. But if you watch, there's different ways guys fight fish on a trap. Some guys really fight it with a really limber rod and just, oh, no. And there's other guys who, when they hook up on a trap, it's just a slow grind all the way to the boat, and they never stop until it's in there. What have you found the best way to fight them? Because even when they're eating it, I mean, it's a bait that you jump fish off on sometimes. What's your best way once you hook up to get that fish in the boat?
Well, what I learned over the course of time was I used to bury my rod tip in the water to try and keep them from jumping, and then I wind up losing more. So what I do is I hook them and I just fight them to the boat. I let the fish fight against the rod. I'm not in a super big hurry, but I keep them coming. I don't stop reeling and let them do their thing. I just keep them coming nice and easy, nice and slow. Let them fight me, do what I got to do, but I keep gaining on them the whole time. I'm not using baby line. I'm using 17-pound fluoro or 50-pound braid. So they're not going to break the line on me. I just want to keep them pinned. And if they jump, what I do when they jump is I just keep pressure on them when they're jumping and keep pulling it. And it keeps them from having the leverage. Because if you look at these baits, I mean, they're half ounce. If the hook's in them, that bait's flopping all over the place. This is what knocks the hooks out, that bait's banging back and forth. So I try to keep pressure on it to keep the bait from going back and forth. But other than that, it's just, I keep reeling, not like a maniac. You know, I don't get them on top and ski them in. I let them fight me, especially the big ones. I let them fight me, and I take my time with them, but I keep them coming. I never stop reeling, and until I get them to the boat. If they make a surge underneath the boat, that's what the tricky part. So I'll hit the thumb bar and I'll keep my thumb on the spool, and I'll use my thumb as a drag because it's way more efficient than a drag and a reel.
Huh. Good stuff there. A number of people want to know, what about a clip? Do you ever use a clip?
Yes, I use the Norman speed clip on everything.
Yeah.
Every crankbait that I have, I use that. I like the clip on it. Again, I know guys that tie direct. I don't like tying direct. You're never going to be able to see this, so I'm going to explain this to you. There's weak spots in everything you do in fishing. There's weak spots, okay? On your O-rings, yeah, you ain't going to see that. On your O-rings, where the O-ring comes around and meets, you're going to have an uneven mark.
Yep.
When your knot goes to that uneven mark, all the vibration in your lure is taking that uneven part of the O-ring and smashing it against your knot all the time. That's the weak spot, dude. That'll create over a few casts where now if you're using 17-pound, that strength in that knot, because it's been hit on that part of the O-ring so many times, is probably 10 or 12-pound strength. So when they set up, oh, I broke him off, holy crud, he must have been a giant. No, he probably was just another 2.5 or 3 pounder, but you had worn your knot down on that uneven spot on the O-ring. So that's why I use the Norman speed clip on that. You eliminate a weak spot.
Yeah. A number of questions about water temp. How cold is the water temp typically when you're throwing a rattle bait early in the spring?
Yeah, I mean, I've had them going on it in 40-degree water temperature. When I was on Watts Bar, it was 41 degrees, and they were cramming it. I mean, they were choking on it, and we wound up in second place in that championship, and we were catching 5 and 6 pounders on that thing. You know, in the back of these shallow coves and stuff. For the most part, when the water temperature starts to get post jerkbaity is when the rattle bait becomes on fire.
Yeah.
So you got an overlap period, 45 degrees, that area where the jerkbait's still good, but then the rattle trap's coming on. So,
do you have a memorable catch on a rattling bait off the top of your head, Frank?
Yeah, I do. Oh my God. Oh my God, do I ever? Okay, so here's the thing. So I go super spot hard knocker. Okay. Yeah. I live and die on them. All right. So I'm on the Chesapeake Bay. First time ever. And I'm just getting my feel around for this place, okay, because I'd never been there before. Well, I came on this bar, this big hump in the Chesapeake, and it had grass on top of it. So I'm like, well, this is perfect, man. So I put on the super spot, I chuck it out there, and I'm knocking it over the top of the grass. I go, yeah, this is good. It's not hanging up in the grass. I slow it down, and you know how you go to pick them up to make another cast?
Yeah.
I slow it down. I go to pick it up, and I got this gigantic ocean run striper comes up and smokes this thing, right? Well, I'm using 50-pound braid. And so I got my hand, you palm the reel, when you're fishing, you palm the reel.
Yeah.
I got the reel palm. This fish, I'm telling you, I got 6 feet of line out. He comes out from underneath nowhere, smokes this thing. I lean in on him, and he takes off. And at my line, dude, he cut me almost to the bone with my line. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm fighting this fish in, and it took a long time. This is a giant ocean run striper, probably the biggest. Well, it is the biggest one I ever caught in my life. So I get him up to the side of the boat, and I'm by myself. And he's kicking the crap out of me. So I got to go to the back of the boat. It's closer to the water. I'm going to lay down on my belly. I'm going to grab this thing by the mouth, and I'm just going to slide him on the back deck of the boat. I grabbed this fish by the mouth with one hand, and he started thrashing and spinning, and it almost broke my wrist. I'm like, what the hell? So I put the rod down. I grabbed him with both hands. I slid him on the back deck of the boat, right? Dude, I picked that fish up, and I was holding him by the jaw, like by my belly, and his tail was hanging on the bottom of my boat carpet. It was like bent like that. It was enormous. That is the most memorable fish I ever caught on a rattle bait, because the ocean run stripers fight better than any striper you're going to catch in an inland lake, bar none.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, and then in the meantime, I'm bleeding to death because that line cut me like a jigsaw. I really thought, I got nervous. I really did.
That's the worst cut. Jeffries, didn't you have a deal where you went out to Thunderbird by yourself and caught a mid-20s bag on a trap?
Yeah.
3 or 4 winters ago, we were like, dude, you got to go out there. And we had not thrown it, and had been catching them on jerk baits and flat side crankbaits. And Jeffries goes out and it was a red trap in the winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of those red and purple one knockers. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think it's called Sunset Craw, maybe.
It reminded me of Tequila Sunrise.
I know exactly which one.
Purple red mix is what I caught him on. It just absolutely smashed him. And then the other thing that I caught him on that day, Matt, is the Rogue that they don't make anymore, the red and orange Rogue. Do you remember that one, Frank?
That was the Super Rogue?
Yeah, in fact, I think I've got one over there on the other side of the studio. Dude, that thing was money.
Is it kind of clearish a little bit?
It's a little clear.
Yeah, no,
I don't think they make it anymore. I'll grab one when you go into a thesis again, and then I'll throw it up on the camera and I'll show it to you.
Ooh, a thesis.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
But you were just chunking that trap just along rock.
Yeah.
And call it 20, suspended, not yo-yo and nothing. Just cast it out and reel it in.
Throwing it out, reeling it back in. Throwing it out, reeling it back in.
They'll do that. I mean, look, they're suspending that time of year. That's why the jerkbait's so good. You know, that's where the super spot comes into play too, because you can keep it higher in the water column at a slower retrieve.
I'm gonna do something here real quick. Keep talking. Let's see if I can get another question real quick.
I'm not talking anymore. I want to see what you're doing.
No.
Now talk about the 3/4, because there's a bunch of guys that I know that throw the big one, and you haven't really talked a lot about the 3/4. I mean, they even make giant spots too, don't they?
Oh yeah, they do. So the 3/4 ounce for me is it's not so much of a niche. It's just where I'm at. Like when I'm on lakes like in Texas and stuff, the 3/4 will be a player. Just because I'll fish it exactly the same way, only I'll do more yo-yoing with it on break lines and deeper stuff with the 3/4 because that could be money. I know a lot of guys that actually structure fish with them, where they're fishing 15 to 20 feet deep. They cast it out almost like a blade bait, do that kind of stuff with them. I don't do that in the summer, and I have to admit it, because I structure fish my brains out in the summer, and I have other techniques that I just like better than that. But I've seen and I've caught some really big bass on the big 3/4 ouncers. But for my sake, I do more with the halves. I just do.
All right. So then I also have a couple of the Bomber Super Pogies, which look like a gizzard shad. They're saltwater. They're a big saltwater looking rattle bait. I mean, do you ever have you experienced or experimented at all with the super size stuff? Because I was thinking like, hey, you get a deal where you're seeing those. You know, you'll see the gizzards that'll be shooting in shallow water, and you're like, I'm around them. Like I would think like a big. I think it's like an ounce, but it's like 4 or 5 inches long. It's kind of clear. It's a saltwater bait. I've always thought that would kill them. I ain't never caught anything on them.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really experimented too much with that bait at all, to be honest with you. You know, the hard knocker and the super spot, in my opinion, in half ounce is hard to beat. It really is. I can't discredit the 3/4 because I have a box with nothing but them in it. But like I said, it just depends on where I'm at and what the fish are telling me. If I go out with the 3/4 and I'm catching all 4-pounders or better, you could bet your butt it's not coming off my rod. I mean, I'm not taking it off. But in most cases, that half ounce catches a wide variety of sizes as well as the big ones. So I kind of stick with percentages in that game, especially in the tournament game. Oh,
all right, you there?
You're muted.
You dialed in, Jeffries?
I'm working on it. I'm almost there.
What do you do?
He's got something from the archives, man. He went to the you got to blow the dust off that thing, dude.
Yeah, hang on here.
The wall.
Let me see if
he went to the wall of shame.
Jeffries probably has some of that silver thread that you've been looking for up in the attic. Dude, I promise you he does. I've seen the bulk.
I'm running low, man. I want to try Sunline. I looked at the diameters of Sunline and they're very similar. So I'm gonna start branching out. I have to.
We gotta hook you up with some of that Crank FC.
What's the theory behind that?
It casts a long ways and it's super smooth and feels amazing.
It's not.
I don't know the technical reason behind it, but it feels different.
Is it real fluoro or is it fluoro coated?
I believe it's real fluoro. You can look into it. We can get you some.
Yeah, I want to try it because I'm looking for a new line and I've been exhausting my efforts here, and
we can get you some. That silver thread, the stuff you're talking about, it was like the grayish color.
Well, that's their mono. Yes, it was silver thread blue label. That's their mono, but their fluorocarbon. I loved their fluorocarbon because the knot strength was good and it was very low stretch.
Yeah, we'll get you. I think we can probably hook you up with some Crank ST and check the specs on that.
And that's the other reason I throw the rattle baits on fluoro too, is because of the low stretch factor, because that helps you rip and tear through the grass. The other thing, you know what I forgot to mention? The other thing too is that the super spot to flex off of wood real good. So if I'm fishing a lot of stumpy areas, I'll throw that super spot a lot. And I throw that on braid. Whenever I'm fishing it around stumps, I throw it on braid.
Before Jeffries gets to his deal, though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead on that.
No, you go.
Something about stumps. I saw you had EWGs on some and round bends on the other on some. Is that how they're biting it?
Yeah, if they're smoking it hard, I'll leave the hooks that it comes with on it, because once they clamp down on those, they can't really shake the bait too bad. Round bends, you might have a tendency to lose more if they're jumping a lot. So if the fish are really always coming out of the water, then I'll go leave the hooks it comes with on. But if they're staying down, and a lot of times in the cold water they stay down, I'll put the round bends on them just because I like that gaffy look to them. All right, here we go, guys.
All right, I think this is going to work. Hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Well, this is creepy as hell.
I know.
Okay. All right, hang on. You see that there, Frank?
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
Here, I'm gonna take it out of the package.
Don't ruin the package.
No. Hang on.
Jeffries don't know what he's got.
He's got something good there, but I think it's called Sunset Craw.
All right there. Let's see here. Can you see it? It's got the orange belly, and it's kind of purplish. That's what I absolutely wrecked them on. And they're hard to find, I guess.
They are.
Okay. And then the crankbait that I was talking about, this is not the crankbait, the jerkbait. You remember that one, Frank?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They don't make that one anymore either, do they?
No, they don't.
I mean, that was just absolute money on Texoma. And a guy by the name of Glenn Cunningham, who I've fished with for years, is the man that turned me on to that.
That's so weird. I got to admit something. This is going to be terrible. Maybe I should shut up. I don't throw red jerkbaits, man.
Really?
Yeah, maybe I got to start.
Yeah,
Do
but
I need to send some of these to you?
That's a specific thing, that part of the country. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
That's a very regional thing.
Let's see here. Let me do this. I'm not trying to put the spotlight on me or anything. Let's see.
You can go 3. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, see there?
Oh, look at that. Good man.
Yeah. Right there. That was and still is. I bet I got a dozen of them.
That's bad to the bone, dude.
And then here
or bad to the red.
Yeah. Here's the other one. Oops. It's not really a good look. There you go.
Yeah, I would run downstairs and get all mine just like that. But I'm not leaving my post.
All right, here, let me get that shot out of there. That was kind of freaky, wasn't it?
That was cool though.
That was good, dude. Different angle.
Yeah. So I've got a number of those, but it is to me, it's just one of those epic baits. I remember one time, and I've told Matt this, at Fort Gibson, this was like post-spawn. I mean, this was in May, and we got onto something that was very, very weird because I liked fishing this stretch of boat docks in 14 Mile Creek on Fort Gibson. And my buddy Pat, who I fished all the team tournaments with, he got on it on a different set of boat docks. And what we were doing is we were paralleling the docks and killing it right when it got to the corner. So it would be like, super fast. Right before it got to the corner of the dock, you would just stop and it would fall down.
And then all of a sudden your line's going.
Oh, dude, it was insane.
Yeah,
it was
that's
insane.
Cool. That's super cool. That's when you dial in. When you figure little tiny stuff out like that, you're so dialed in, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so we went to Walmart and bought every single one that we could find. Good man.
That's how it's done.
Yeah. We didn't want anybody else picking up on that.
Yeah,
so
that's how to do it.
that's kind of my story on rattle baits and then that orange jerk bait too. So, all right, let me do this. I've got to get set up again.
What's the most you've ever bought for a tournament, Frank? Like going into a tournament where you spend money at the freaking tackle store at the tournament where like the next week you're like, dear God, what do I do with 95 of these now?
Yeah, I spent a couple $100 on a color. And then I found that it was only relevant on that lake at the time. You know, I quit doing that. When I traveled in the tournaments, I would have my spare tackle in my truck. And now you're going to see my OCD. So I don't store any of my hard baits. None of them have hooks on them. Everything is stored without hooks because they oscillate and they vibrate in those boxes in your bed of your truck, and the hooks could scratch the paint, or worse yet, the hooks could get dull. So I take all the hooks out, store all my baits. My soft plastics are all stored in freezer bags, rolled flat, not bunched up, rolled flat, stored. And when I go, and then at home in my basement, I had like 3,000 pegs on my wall, and all the pegs were full of everything that I had in my truck. I had on my wall. So when I go to an event, because look, when you live on a budget, you can't go out and spend $500 on baits on the road.
You can. I've proven that you can.
You can, but it's not smart. So what I did was I had this inventory system. Okay. So let's say I was throwing the super spot in blue chrome and I lost 2 of them in the tournament. So I go to my truck, I take 2 out of my truck, replace them in my boat. When I get home, I take 2 out of the basement and put them back in my truck. So I always have, 6 to 8 of everything in my truck. So I never have to go to the store and buy lures when I'm fishing the tournament trails, because the worst thing I wanted to do is have to take time out of my day to go shopping, of all things. Okay. And I didn't want to spend the extra money on the road. So I made sure that I had a backup inventory. So I did all my spending at home to make sure that I had my inventory system set up. So whatever I took out of the truck to replace in the boat, when I got home, I took out of the basement to replace in the truck. And then when I saw that my pegs were down to 2 or 3 baits on the peg, I would reorder so I can reload the pegs in the basement. And that's the best way that I found to keep from wasting money on the road.
Hey, there was a question about feathers. Have you talked about feathers on this show yet?
I have not. And, tail feathers are a cool thing. Most of the time, if I put tail feathers on anything, it's topwaters or sometimes a jerk bait. But I don't put them on my rattle baits. I don't put tail feathers on my hard knockers, and I don't put them on my super spots. I just don't. I don't want anything trailing off the hook on those things. You're ripping them in so fast, the feathers don't do anything for them anyway. They just fold up. Yeah. Looks like you got a string attached to your hook. But on top, go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. All right, we've talked about KVD and the fact that we've seen him use a jerk bait pretty much 365 throughout the year. Mm-hmm. But the sense of the weekend guy or the average angler is it is a very specific time of the year bait, talking about the jerk bait, which they just put them away. All right. Is the rattle bait the same way for a lot of people? And do you think it's one of the most underutilized bait throughout the entire year?
Absolutely, 100% underutilized. I've caught a lot of bass in the summer on these things too, especially some of the shallower lakes. I got, like I said, my buddy Troy in Charlotte fishes them year round, and he smokes them on it. In fact, when he calls me up and he's like, dude, I had 19 pounds today. I'm like, what were you throwing? I was catching them on a rattle bait. You know what I mean? And I'd be like, man, alive, you know, it's like, it just goes against the grain, but no, they're totally, why wouldn't they work? They imitate a bait fish, you know, they have a lot of noise. They get a lot of reaction strikes. So of course they'll work if the bass are in that depth zone that you're trying to fish. Of course they're going to work.
Yeah. Do you fish it a lot, Matt?
Yeah, I do. I was just saying, I mean, I fish it a lot in the fall, like go in the back of the nasty stuff and throw it in the fall. I actually like the little ones a lot too, like the 1/4 ounces in chrome, because you know we have all those little bitty shad that'll get in the back, but like you said, you'll catch every single thing that swims.
Yeah, oh yeah,
on those things back there. But yeah, like a cover water, I use it a lot when I like am not clueless, but when I'm really searching and in practice a lot, because it's a good way that I feel to generate bites and find active fish. And you could cover a ton of water and make long casts with it. You can, you know, fish it deep. You can fish it shallow. You can burn it.
Yeah, and that's the key thing there too is when you're fishing it like that, especially in the fall or with the spring movements. Okay, what's happening is you're getting a lot of fish moving at the same time. So now you know that if you go into a pocket in the fall and you start catching them on that, you know there's a lot more fish in that pocket than just what you got. Mm-hmm. So it's a great search tool in the fall, but it can also be a main player for you too in the fall. And you know, you're right about the size, because the bait fish are generally smaller in the fall, so the 1/4 ounce can play. They can play a big role. I watched a guy on Santee Cooper use the 1/4 ouncer in a Bassmaster event, and he caught like 3 9-pounders on that little thing. And I was like, holy smokes, dude. That's you know, that's when you start freaking out.
Now, obviously, Frank is going to throw the 1-knockers and the XRs and the spots and stuff. But I will say, when it comes to like a rattle bait, there's so many different kinds out there, and they all have a different vibration. And Frank would be able to talk more about how it affects their lateral lines. But I have found that, man, when I do get on that, I mix it up between 5 or 6 different types, different sizes, and everything, like all the way going back to the old, who's the French guy who's always coming out with the crazy stuff? Patrick Sabille.
Yeah,
like he made one with water in the bottom that doesn't have any sound on it. And then like Spro came out with that new like Womack shad that has different line ties. And then the XR50s and the Strike Kings and Yo Zuris. And it's weird how you could go back through and it's like those fish haven't seen a rattle bait or a rattle trap, and all you've done is change the frequency and a little bit of the profile. Would you not agree, Frank? Oh
yeah, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt, everybody's rattle bait has a different type of action. Okay. The original rattle trap is super, super tight. The thing barely moves. You got to really keep it going to get the vibration out of it. Strike King's red eye shad has a little wider movement to it. It falls a little bit different. The red eye shad's fairly close to the hard knocker in action. It's kind of a mix between the hard knocker and the super spot for action. Everybody's bait is different and does something different. Now you could lose your mind doing that too, dude, because you'll have 5,000 rattle baits for the, you know, in your tournament game for the 3 tournaments you're going to fish them. You know what I mean? Now, fun fishing is a different animal because you could spend more time on certain bites because you're not pressured to, you know, fish a tournament. So you can actually spend more time, you know, fishing the hard knockers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you could lose your mind with that. I mean, everybody's bait is different. There's not 2 the same. There's just not.
And is there ever a time where it scares them? Because I mean, if you've ever cast a trap under a bridge and just gone, brrr, I mean, you're like, I mean, oh my God, you feel it, you hear it, and everything. Like, how does that not just freak the hell out of them? I've always wondered.
Yeah, my biggest pet peeve is in the tournament fishing, even fun fishing, if we're both throwing rattle baits at the same time. That's my biggest pet peeve. There's so much noise going on down there. So, then I switch frequencies, and then I go to the hard knocker. Let the dude throw whatever he wants. I'll throw the clunker and I'll catch him. That's when I make the switch. Same thing with buzz baits, dude. If I'm throwing a buzz bait and the guy in the back of my boat picks up a buzz bait, I'm like losing my marbles. It's like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Because those fish, think about it, man. You got that noise that that the hard knocker's making, and then the guy's throwing another one right next to you, and there's all this noise going down there, and it's the same thing with buzz baits. It drives me crazy. It does. So I switch. That's when the hard knocker for me, if a guy's throwing a rattle bait in the back of my boat, that hard knocker's on. I don't even guess. I'm like, yeah, okay, you throw that noisy thing. I'll throw this one and I'll catch them. You know what I mean? I believe I'll catch them. And so I catch them.
Interesting. Somebody actually said, longtime listener, Frank in Michigan, does the different sound work like the hydro wave? Matt, Frank?
I'm not really super familiar with the hydro wave stuff, but I can tell you that bass can definitely pick up on vibration frequencies. If you don't believe me, take a rattle bait to a farm pond and go fish it, and walk one time around the pond, and you'll smoke the ever living garbage out of them. Go back the next day and you'll barely catch them on it, because they realize that frequency is not edible.
Look at that question, Frank. What about silent rattle baits?
Well, they're not rattle baits then.
Exactly.
I don't play with the silent baits. I'm going to be so honest right now. I don't throw them. I don't want to throw them. I don't play with them. It could be a fault I have, but I want noise when I throw the rattle baits. I want the noise. Yeah. I haven't seen where throwing a non-rattling rattle bait is better than throwing a rattling one.
What about a crankbait that doesn't make noise?
Now there's some instances where that could come into play. Like after I wear a school of fish out with a DD22, I might throw the silent one on to try and pick up some residual bites. But more often than not, if I'm structure fishing with deep diving crankbaits, I'll throw the Carolina rig as a follow-up to it, because I'll catch fish on the rig that I otherwise would not catch on the crankbait.
Yeah.
Or
Matt, is there a single event in the Opens this year, Matt, that you might throw a Carolina rig?
Might throw a Carolina rig. The Lake Norman in September could be maybe a Carolina rig deal there.
It could be. Could very well be.
Pickwick, the end of April, beginning of May, depending on where the spawn sits. I mean, you could maybe catch some post spawners on a Carolina rig there offshore on those shallower shell beds.
Right before they get out.
If it's a really warm year, October and on Grand, you could Carolina rig the brush piles and some of that rock. I mean, these are all hypothetical rig situations. Yeah, but Oneida for sure. Doesn't they eat that? They'll eat that on Oneida for sure.
Smash that thing on
grass
Oneida,
patches
dude.
and the reefs and stuff out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of options to throw it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the Carolina rig, and it's my favorite ever way to fish.
I'm high-fiving.
I'm high-tenning you. I can't help it. It is. I mean, it is. It's so effective. Now, there's a long time ago, Mark Hicks did an article for Bassmasters, and it was about the Carolina rig. And he interviewed myself and Swindell. And Swindell called it the quitter's rig. I was like, what? You know what I mean? I catch more big fish on that Carolina rig than darn near anything I own. I just do, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's an extension of my arm. When I'm throwing that rig, I'm catching them, and I'm catching them hard. So.
Very nice. All right, man. It looks like they are underway on the Elite Series finally after a fog delay. And
how long? How long was the delay?
About 3 hours. They just took off. Shane Lineberger caught the first recorded bass of the season, a 2-pounder.
Excellent.
Yeah. So hopefully tomorrow they will not be in a fog delay.
They'll be in a fog delay.
So
it's we're still time of year.
Yeah, we're still gonna try to have the watch party with Frank tomorrow.
Oh,
so once again, if you want to take part in the watch party, send me an email, mark@basszone.com, and I will shoot you the video link to where you can be a part of the party. And we'll talk about whatever until we finally see some action if they are delayed tomorrow.
Yeah, and call in with lots of questions.
Yeah.
I like questions better than I do announcing things.
We'll do the same thing. We'll do the same thing we did on the Sunline Hotline show, Frank. People can call in, they ask a question, then they hang up.
Perfect.
And then they can listen to the response. So we'll do that tomorrow, too, on the Sunline Hotline.
Love it.
All right.
Love it. I'm going to be a Sunline guy, I think.
No, you'll end up being a Sunline.
I'm just telling you, I researched. I have an OCD gene. I researched it to death. It's the closest thing I have to what I'm doing right now. So.
Dude, changing line is the tough. Like for a fisherman who fishes all the time, in my opinion, changing line is the toughest thing you can do because you get confidence in this line. And I mean, you've seen guys who break off a couple fish, their hook set changes, their confidence changes. I mean, I've been through that in past years where you literally get a bite and you're like, God, I hope this is not a big fish because I don't want to break off. I don't want to. And you're like, wait, I'm literally in a tournament hoping it's not big so I don't have to test my equipment. And then you get through it where like it bites and you tell your co-angler like that fish just messed up. And like you haven't even hooked it yet, but you know everything's dialed. I mean, that confidence in line is so freaking big.
It is, and it makes me nervous. It makes me real nervous. Like I fish it before I throw line in a tournament, except one time. I actually used a brand new line. It was when Silver Thread came out with their fluorocarbon for the first time. I was on Okeechobee, and they gave me a bunch to try. And it was literally the day before the event. And of course, like a moron, I spooled up everything with it. And I was out there, and it's just like it's just like you said, you know, I pitched into the first set of mother-in-law tongues, and I got that, and man, my heart was like in my throat until I went, and that fish didn't break the line or come off. I was like, okay, you know what I mean? And then I started using it, and I found, because I fly fish a lot, so I used other people's fluorocarbon for leader material and stuff. And so I knew a lot about fluorocarbon in that respect. And there was a lot of attributes I liked about some of the other fluorocarbons and a lot that I didn't. And when I got to that Silver Thread, I was like, holy crud, this has the best of all the worlds in it. So this is what I'm going to use. You know what I mean? And so now going to switch, because now I have to. I'm nervous. I'll be honest with you. I'm nervous about it. Line is your weakest link, man. I mean, everything has to be perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Line and hooks.
Yeah. I see a comment here you put up there.
Yeah. How cool is that? It's from TJ.
Perfect.
Said, I would like to thank Frank. I used a blade bait for the first time, hooked up on the third cast. That's cool stuff, Frank.
That means you're in the right place doing the right thing, dude.
Yeah. That's really neat.
Yeah, it is cool.
Very cool. All right, so tomorrow, same time, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, the watch party. And if you want to take part, please shoot me an email, mark@basszone.com. So make sure you go over to Bassmaster. Also, make sure you check out the stuff that's going down with the TWPC. I was going to take a glance real quick, see if they updated.
We got a lot of initials being thrown around out there.
Yeah, Frederick still unofficially in the lead with 21 pounds from the Big O. So great job as always, Frank. Matthew, I seriously doubt that you will be in studio on Monday.
Yeah, so here's a problem. So I gotta get the boat and take it to the bass tank right after the show. So that'll probably it's supposed to take half an hour. That'll probably take an hour and a half. I'm using some of Bradley's icy towing tips to get there, but I have no other option. I have to. And then I also, like an idiot, I do the daily contacts, and I ran out of this is my last set of contacts, and I'm on day 3 with them, and they're change every day. Perfect. So they're in Norman. That's the problem.
Well,
last time I got glasses, I was a freshman in high school.
Yikes.
So I have old glasses and no contacts now, so I'm in a bit of a pickle.
Well, you're going to want to have spare glasses when you start traveling in case something happens to your contacts.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah. But then you're going to have to do your sunglasses too.
Yeah.
Which was my problem. I used to hate that because then it cost me twice the amount of money for sunglasses because I had to put my prescription in them.
Well, I'm good with the contacts. I can carry an extra 6 sets with me because they're changed every day, so I don't have to do the prescription sunglasses. But I do need actual new glasses. Jeffrey's, I remember the first time Jeffrey's wore glasses freaked me out. Now he looks totally normal in them. That wasn't that long ago. You didn't do that until, 5 years ago, Mark?
Yeah.
He looks so smart now.
But he went 40,
whatever.
Almost 50 years old. You were 50 years old and never wore glasses.
Yeah.
For reading, for nothing. He's a genetic freak.
That's good. Now I can't even see the thing to put the line through the hook. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah. He will be there someday, Frank. Someday he will experience what we're going through right now.
I've had that where before the tournament and it's kind of low light. You got a medium micro guide and you're like, whoa, I missed it. And you look around and you're like, whoa, I missed it again. And then you just have like a pre-midlife crisis 3 minutes before launch.
Well, you do.
There you have it. All right, Matt, be safe. Let me know if you're coming down today. Weather-wise, it looks like today's going to be your best day, today or tomorrow.
All right.
So it is what it is. I mean, I could go get them, I guess. Pick them up. Yes? No? Let me know.
Okay.
All right, Frank, great stuff. As always, we will talk to you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., the first watch party of the year. Can't wait. So everybody come back, hang out with us for a little while tomorrow. Everybody try and stay warm. We're going to do that. The snow is coming. 16 inches of snow in Oklahoma City. Unbelievable. All right, everybody be safe. That's it. We're out of here.